Hi, everybody. It's Steve Garvin with Bernadette Geyer, and we are talking about elevating your brand. And one of the things that uh, comes up when you're thinking about your branding is, where do you start? How do you start to establish what your brand image is, and the words and so forth? Um, Bernadette and I've been talking quite a bit about this, and just her specialty is the language side of the equation, and my specialty is more the visual side. And one of the things that I like to think about is that your images and your words, when they come together, it's like the old Reese's peanut butter cup commercial where you get the peanut butter and the chocolate, and they come together, and it's two tastes that taste great, taste better together. And with Halloween just gone a couple days ago, I've consumed my fair share of Reese's peanut butter cups in the last couple of days.
My daughter hogs them all. I don't get any.
So, how does Reese's peanut butter cups apply to your business? How do you where do you start when you're establishing your brand when it comes to language, Bernadette?
Well, for me, it's the consistency in referring to what your business does, what value you provide to your customer. And I'm so big on consistency. I think about like the mission of your business and how you describe what you do, and where you have that text. It should be the same across all of your platforms, whether you have the mission statement on your website, on your Twitter profile, on your Facebook page, and even when you're talking to people at meetings, you want to be saying the same thing. You don't want your Facebook page to say you do X, and you're talking to people at a meetup, and you're like, oh, I do this, and then they look at your website and they wonder if they're looking at the website of the same person they talked to at the meetup. So you want to really develop a concise text that explains what your value is to your target customer, and then just repeat it, because that repetition is what sticks in people's brains and does part of the job of establishing your brand.
Absolutely. And the same thing from the visual perspective is when you've got different colors, different images, different, uh, pictures. One of the things I see a lot is, very different styles of profile images and so forth. And, it's the same person, but it doesn't. And I was looking at my old SlideShare, not my SlideShare account, where my profile is from back when I was in corporate 5 years ago, and minus goatee and a little less gray hair, and I mean, it's just very different. It's like I didn't even recognize the image. But when you have that consistency, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I now that you mention it, I should probably take a look at my profile pictures and make sure I'm not using one from, when I used to be a lot more corporate.
Yeah, well, it's tricky because we're like all over the place. At least I am. I think I've got an account with all of the major social media sites and a fair number of the secondary level ones. And it's if I'm one of the things that I want to do in my branding is to establish who I am and what I'm doing and why I do it and so forth. And I want to deliver a consistent message across all the platforms, so that it establishes credibility. It's more memorable, and it's consistent.
One thing that I've been doing is I've been including my mission statement at the bottom of all of my blog posts, so that when you're sharing your blog posts, a link to your blog post, that might be like the first exposure that somebody has to you and your thoughts and your expertise. And it's nice to have that little line at the bottom that says who you are and what you do. And as I've been going through and resharing old blog posts, I have to update those little taglines on all of them with like my new mission statement, because I've kind of gone through a little pivot over the last couple of years. As with any business, you refine your services. And maybe the blog post that you wrote 2 years ago has a tagline from when you were highlighting a workshops that you were doing, and you don't do workshops anymore. So you want to make sure that you're updating the taglines to reflect your new mission or your new value proposition to your potential clients.
Right. And it's tricky to keep all that in order. Now, when we're talking about establishing your brand, one of the things that you sent me were some ideas about, kind of your mission statement. What exactly do you mean by a mission statement?
Well, it's something really succinct that I am so and so. I provide X services to, and then a little description of the type of client that you provide services to, so that and then your value to them. Like for myself, my mission statement is, and I actually just recently revised it based on looking at what I actually do for people, instead of just listing off every single service that I provide. What is the actual value? My value is I help businesses make sure they are understood by the people they're trying to reach. So like, instead of going through and saying, I am a freelance writer, editor, translator, is the value. Does that help you a little bit? Is going to have like this little template that the people who are participating in this challenge can fill out and just say, I provide X services to these types of clients so that they get this great value.
Absolutely.
That's really all you need to do.
Great.
Is our video frozen?
Hello.
Hi. I don't know what you got.
I am moving. Yeah, well, I started when you began your sentence about your tagline or your mission statement, aka elevator pitch. You started to break up, and I'm moved so that I can hopefully get a better connection. But dang it. There we go. Okay. Anyway, so if you could say your mission statement one more time, or your, okay. And I'll splice.
So yeah, I came up with my succinct mission statement is just, I help businesses make sure they are understood by the people they're trying to reach. So instead of listing all of the different ways I do that, just that's what I do. And then when I talk to the individual, I find out what type of service would be best, and then direct them. But through on my Facebook page, on my website, the tagline of my blog posts, I incorporate that text, and then by that consistency, it reinforces my brand for my business.
Nice. Good. So I am in my daughter's room because that's where the server is and the router is. So I'm probably gonna take the audio and add it to create some video to go with it.
Okay.
Just because I don't really want a bunch of dolls in the background.
Right.
But anyway, so that's great, and I really like the way that you help people, and it's broad enough that it covers, you can do a lot of different things, and it's I think it's nice to have that flexibility.
And when we go through on challenge 2 about your target customer, I'll have some things to say about target customer. I leave my mission statement very general on purpose because for reasons I'll discuss tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Waiting with bated breath.
Yeah, people have to tune in tomorrow.
Right. And my mission statement, and I've actually got it it's embedded in my domain name and in other places, and you'll see it like in the bottom of all my images and so forth, which is, just the 3 words of gifts into gold.
Yeah.
That it's, how I help entrepreneurs turn their gifts into gold. And one of the ways that I do that primarily is through helping them close the visibility gap. And one of the things that I'm realizing recently is that, when we talk about visibility, we have lots of different ideas as to what that means. There's actual visual visibility part of it, but there's also, having your words being out there. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be an image. It just, our words get out there. I mean, on Twitter, not as much nowadays because they're starting to integrate more visuals in the Twitter stream, but it used to be just the 140 characters of text, and having your stuff out there and having however many followers you've got on Twitter, you're being visible,
yeah,
without being visible, if you know what I mean. But if you can have that consistent message and that consistent idea of who you are and what you do and how you help people, then it just really helps to develop that.
Yeah, and like with your Gifts into Gold tagline, you have a lot of imagery that is very complementary to it and goes along with those words. Like, you wouldn't have, like, although, maybe if you put like a Cadillac car, that kind of gives a different.
Right. Yeah. It was a real challenge, honestly. I mean, that was one of the things that happened. It took me quite a while to come up with the image and the logo that I've got for my business, because I wanted to have an image that represented who I am, my mission and my kind of values and take on the world. And a Cadillac was not in that. In fact, what I ended up with, and you'll see it, on the different places, is a bee coming out of with a hexagon for the honey cell, the honeycomb cell. And one of the things I love about animals in general is that there's always tons of symbolism there, and with a bee, you can think about, the worker bee, and, one of the ideas that I like about it is, the work that they do is sweet, it turns into the honey at the end, and there's also the idea of community and all that kind of thing. And so, the image can convey a lot. And it's honestly one of the things that I see. It's a great opportunity that oftentimes doesn't get addressed. Like, I'm using a Dell laptop to speak on, and I'm looking at their logo, which is just Dell. It's more of a word mark, and it's just, the E tilted a bit, which doesn't really tell me anything about who Dell is, other than got a tilted E. But like Apple, which is all about, is a heavily emphasis on the visual aspects of things, is that their logo, which is a logo, is the apple with a bite out of it. And I did a little bit of research on it recently, and one of the things that I discovered is that the apple is actually the apple from the Garden of Eden, and it's about the tree of knowledge, and you know, it kind of evokes ideas of wisdom and kind of awareness and
Genesis, like really,
right,
the origin of a new technology.
right, yeah. So
Yeah, so the image is very evocative,
right,
even without words.
yeah, when the words and the images, like we said in the beginning, when they come together, it's 1+1 = 3, not just 1+1 = 2, or even sometimes when they really don't work well together, it can come up to be a negative sum, or a zero sum. But you always want the words and the images to come together in a way that the end result is 1+1 = 3.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to have like, your mission statement is I help you crush your competition, and then have like, a little flowing stream with a hummingbird or something,
Right, right,
like they don't go together.
right. Yeah. And what exactly does crushing your competition mean? And is it the Jolly Green Giant walking through town, or is it
Yeah.
but yeah, and that's one of the things that I find both challenging and really rewarding, is finding that right turn of image that really fits the words. And with your background and with words and language and so forth, um, one, I know you've got poetry in your background, and where words are really important. How does that show up in the work that you do? How do you find the right words to share the idea that you're trying to create?
I like a lot of the poetic devices, like alliteration,
Mm,
where you have a lot of repetition of the first sound of each word,
hmm
uh, or just having a rhythm to your words so that they just flow. Even as you were talking about, like the various meanings that one word can have, um, that it means this, it means one thing in this context, but there's still, like, in the background, there's the Latin root, which also
mm,
relates to other words that kind of bring in other nuances to the words that you choose for your mission statement, or for any of the posts that you do. So that's kind of where I bring the poetry into when I'm crafting, um, like really fine tuning my marketing texts. If it has to be really tight, I want to make sure that every word is doing like 5 or 10 different duties.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And you can be and it can be done too. One of the exercises that I've done is a little 6-word stories, or
Yes.
where you can tell a story in 6 words,
Yeah.
which seems
Yeah, those
impossible.
are great. It's like, your
But
mission statement is telling the story of your business.
right, exactly. Um, is something that was started out by, I don't know if it was started by, oftentimes in the 6-word story arena, they use Ernest Hemingway's, you know, 6-word story that he used, which was, what is it? Baby shoes for sale, never worn. Uh,
Yeah.
which tells a whole story in of itself. Um, but yeah, it's and words are powerful, just like images are. So,
Oh, yeah.
um,
So what are we challenging them today?
so our challenge today is to start with who you are, and I'm providing in the document that I'm sending out, I've got a couple of lists of words that you can choose, that resonate most with you. Um, you know, and those words will give you some ideas that you can spin off of, in order to come up with the guidelines and the imagery and so forth that you want for your business. So, you know, choose the words that reflect who you are as a business owner and your vision for the work that you do and the service that you do. So,
Right.
yeah.
And I guess they'll be putting their mission statements, if they want to share it, in the comments below, and then we will have a little conversation in the comments.
Absolutely. Yeah. So please share your mission statement and or your values, the words that you're using to kind of establish that mission statement. So that, you know, sometimes it takes time to, you know, to get it all to come together. You know, it took me months to come up with the gifts into gold. You know, but you know, I had a pretty good sense when I go through these lists of different, and there's different ways you can do it. I've seen where they use verbs, and I've seen where they use nouns or adjectives, and they both give a different spin to it. But we are who we are at the core, you know. And when you like really start from there and, you know, create an authentic, resonant brand, you know, it's starting with who you are at the center.
Yeah.
And that won't change. Your words can change, you know, your images can change, but who you are, you know, likely isn't going to change a great deal.
And we'll build on today's work throughout the rest of the challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So tomorrow is all about your target client, your, you know, who your people are, and how to reach out and communicate with them. So post your words in the comments below, and we'll have a great discussion. Anyway, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.